Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of From. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So looking at the recap at the beginning, I'm like, the whole Father Cautry and Sarah thing shouldn't have come as a surprise to me. The way he was acting weird, I'm like, did she actually really get away? It's like his excuse, like, oh, my knees aren't what they used to be. I'm like, he has her, doesn't he? I was like, now in retrospect, I was like, I should have figured as much. I was like, I felt like something was off about that, but I didn't read too much in. I felt like I'm probably reading too much into it. It's like, no, he does have her, because I guess as a man of faith, he's trying to like figure out maybe there's a reason why she did what she did. That, because like Nathan told her about the voices, so I don't know whether he was thinking like something otherworldly spoke to you and through you, so there has to be a reason for it. It's interesting because like the title of this episode is Book 74. I never knew that was, I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing, you know. I wonder, do most people know that who are like religious? I'm not the most religious person, so like I'm not well versed in all that stuff. But basically that the Bible is made of is a combination of 73 other books. I'm like, that's fascinating. And I love that also the explanation of like, right, it's interesting how people kind of treat it like it's a complete book, but it's not. Because the very story of the Bible, I guess, in his view, in his mind, is like, it's a very ever-growing and continuous story. It's not going to be over until everything's over. Until, like, everything wipes out from existence. Then that'll be, like, the end-all final chapter. But the Bible is an always evolving story, because obviously the Bible makes parallels, people make parallels between like, oh, what happened in the Bible and what was prophesied, and you know, and this is also coming from someone, once again, who's not very religious, who's not very like well versed in the Bible, so, but it just seems so interesting, that perspective he has. But he believes, like, you know, there's a reasoning for like all, like, that's why people have faith. It's like we have to find some reason in all the madness and the craziness of how this world works and why it works the way it does. So we kind of have to that's what faith is all about. Believing that there's a reason behind everything, even though you can't see it, you know. That's called having faith in everything, right? So he's trying to get information from Sarah, and we kind of get an explanation from her of why she feels the way, why she listened to the voice. She said the voices said like, hey, they've been here for a very long time. Much like they're like us, they're trapped. Now, once again, whether those monsters are those people who've just turned into malevolent things over the years, or whether the voices Sarah is hearing is something else separate from the monsters. Once again, maybe the place itself is talking to her. I wonder, does this have any correlation to the little boy that Ethan sees, the little boy that Victor also saw when he was a kid? So maybe there's some correlation there. Once again, we're getting pieces. We're not just quite sure what necessarily fits together, but she said the voices told her that two cars would come at the same time. So it does seem like the last time two cars came here was when Victor was a kid. So it seems like it's that far back. And I guess it also explains like maybe Victor wasn't the first. Because I was wondering, like, oh, is this like some town that Victor was in and got trapped? But it's like, no, like everyone else, he came to this place at some point in time, probably with his family and such. I was wondering if, like, it's Victor from, like, the first group. Stuff in this episode kind of lends itself to a theory I presented, like, a couple episodes back, where I was wondering how old this place actually is. Because, jumping around a little bit, Jade had that vision, and I was looking at those uniforms, like, oh, those are like Civil War uniforms. At the end of the episode, they even say, like, oh, so-and-so as this Civil War character. I'm like, okay, so it definitely was, so Civil War is like in the 1800s. So this place is at the bare minimum what we know. We can go that far back. Maybe. To some degree. And my thought was, could this be like... And now I'm shaky on whether I'm right or not, but I believe it was Roanoke, right? Where, like, the people, like, someone left, came back, everyone disappeared. It was, like, super, super old. It's, like, early days, like, of this country old, specifically the U.S. And all that was left were the words, was it Croatoa or Croatoan? I don't remember. It's just one of those things like you learned as a kid that's always stuck with me, because I know some shows have used it. I know like Supernatural, the show references. It's like one of those like great mysteries, almost like the Bermuda Triangle. One of those mysteries that's just like forever being like, why is it what it is? Obviously there's like potential like scientific explanation for like why the Bermuda Triangle works the way it does. Like maybe it's a dead zone that just kind of makes all like stuff haywire, so people most likely get lost and just things go haywire and people potentially crash into the sea or something like that. That's kind of the thought that at least I've heard in the past. But my wondering was like, could this place be that old? And certain elements in this episode makes me think. It also makes me, because I'd question, maybe this place adapts itself over the years, that it constantly changes into what people need it to be, that this place almost like, it shapes itself so that you feel more comfortable here. Maybe it's almost supposed to like give you all that you need, just like, I think I even made this reference, like the Hansel and Gretel thing of like, oh man, here's the witch, like, feeding you so that she could cook you up. Like, what this place doing is it wants you relaxed, and it's treating you like cattle. Like, I want you relaxed and tenderized so that when we eat you, it's so good. I'm wondering if there's some correlation there. Because it's something apparently Jade found out himself, but we see this episode that Jim finds out that none of the cords work. They shouldn't work. There's no wiring in any of the cords. It's like, so, and obviously the question is, where the hell does the light come from then? Like, where is this electricity coming from? Even they were like, yeah, where do those animals come from that we're constantly running into and like using as food? Like, we have no idea where they came from. That's a question that was something that was presented. They don't really dive into, but it's just a casual like one line of like, yeah, we don't know where the animals come from. I think it was what Kenny was explaining to Jade, but it's like, yeah, the place gives you what you need in a supernatural sense of like, yeah, it just works. Just accept it as is. It's like, no, it shouldn't work the way it does. So that's fascinating. I think that kind of gives credence to like, yeah, this place kind of gives you what you need on a supernatural level. We just still don't fully understand why this place exists, and maybe there's a greater reason behind it, but also like maybe tying back into like the Sarah thing of maybe the voices she's hearing are people who died here, who have been trapped here, who are haunting this place, trying to escape, trying to find some way out. Or maybe it's just like, right, it's not fair that you get to live and you're trapped here, but we're trapped and dead, so we want you to join you. Because she said the voices referenced the last time 2 cars came here, which we know from Victor's perspective, everyone died the last time 2 cars came here. So that's why she did what she did. So I was like, so it's, in the long run, what's the plan? To kill everybody from the 2 cars? So Jim and his entire family, you already killed Jade's buddy. So I wonder what the correlation there was. Like, why was just killing Nathan going to be the thing that saved everyone? Because she believes the voices, because it's like, right, they told me things that it shouldn't know, like that there were going to be 2 cars here. And obviously Father Khatri trying to figure out like what this all means. Once again saying like, oh, are we the 74th book? And so Sarah draws him something, and it correlates to a bag he hid when he arrived here. And I guess obviously he's probably been here longer than Sarah, so he's like, wait, how could you know something that no one else in this town knows? So he unburies the bag. There's liquor in there. So I'm like, okay, so you probably had a drinking problem in the past, and you've ever since coming to this place, you've straightened yourself up and try to put that behind you. There's a shirt with a priest collar that's covered in blood, so maybe he killed someone and was on the run, maybe a drunk driving situation. But there's like a piece of like chocolate or something, and has a very specific design on the front of it, and that's what Sarah drew. So there's validity to what she's saying. Now the question is, and this has always been my thing of like reverend characters recently, because I brought this up with the 4400 reboot, but I always correlate it back to Haven, how the priest in that like tried to like his holy war, his holy mission, like that kind of divided the town of Haven in that regard of those who are anti people with troubles and those who are pro people with troubles, like that thing. And I'm wondering if Father Khatri is going to do that same thing where it's like, right, there is validity to what Sarah's saying, that something is speaking to her, something knows this, that maybe there's a reason behind this, and it might be a thing of kind of like a very old school thing of like, well, sacrifices have to be made, and that is the only way we're going to go home. Because even Sarah, that is the thing, you're following these voices, they never explicitly told you how you would get home. She's like, I don't know, just she believed in these voices and did some terrible stuff. But she was also like, right, they promised that Nathan would be okay, but he's not. Granted, I don't know if she's going to hold that against the voices, because it's like, she probably would have been like, maybe her justification is that Nathan's not okay, regardless of it being kind of an accident and it being on me. The voices promised that he'd be okay. So since he's not okay, maybe the voices aren't that great, or it's just like maybe she's just plain beating herself up and not criticizing the voices of like, they told me what to do. It's my own fault that Nathan died. He tried to step in to stop me from killing a kid. So maybe I'm curious what her thought process is, because the moment she's like, Nathan's gone, and because that's just like, right, her brother, the only family, the only person she really has here, because no one else in the town is going to have her back. Nathan had her back through and through, despite what she did. We'll see how that plays out, what role Father Khatri plays, but I think he's definitely going to lean towards like we're going to have to keep an eye on him from now on, because I don't think we can trust him anymore necessarily. We'll see if that ends up being a case, but circling back with Jim, him and Jade, I love that Jade just busted in his house. I'm like, I guess he found out that Jim was an engineer and is like, oh, hey, I could figure something, we could work on this together. So it's the radio situation, getting an antenna made, and trying to get a signal out. But then that's when Jade ended up having his vision of like dismembered bodies at the tree, getting hunted by that Civil War soldier. So that's the thing. Why does Jade specifically keep having these visions? These are 3 different characters. Sarah is having like these voices. Ethan's seeing that little kid that Victor saw. So there's correlation there. So Victor should also be thrown into this, considering like he's probably the oldest resident here potentially, because he was around when literally everyone got killed. And then 4, which once again, circling back to that, why does no one know, like, has Victor hid how long he's actually been here? Like, I guess, like, anyone that would know that he's been here for a long time is probably already dead, because no one makes a point of it. They're like, he's weird, but, like, Donna doesn't say anything about it, neither does Boyd. To be fair, Boyd's only been here, like, 2-3 years at most. So I don't know how many people, like, he's probably seen so many people come and go over the years that, like, by the time new people come around, older people that were here, just something happens and they end up dying anyway. So no one pieces together that he's been here for a very, very, very long time, and maybe Jade ultimately will. But regardless, so that was just the point of, like, it's just interesting that no one points that out. But now, like, you also have Jade having his vision. This is the second time he's had a vision. So I would have to go back, but that person he saw underneath that giant rock boulder, like, was that also someone in a Civil War uniform or something else? I don't remember now. But it's like, why is Jade having these? I mean, why are each of these people, like, so connected to this place? Why them specifically? Because it seems like Sarah's the only one getting used in the way she is. Ethan's having his interactions with those kids, but it's still been a while now. And because even Victor saw him like the one time and then he just disappeared. So Ethan's seen him like once or twice and he's disappeared since then too. So, and now Jade's had these visions like twice now. So, and he saw something carved into the tree and he's at the diner drawing it. And Tien, Kenny's mom, showed him the symbol, because at first she was going through a box, because she basically has like I don't know if it's necessarily like a lost and found, but basically it's like a storage place they keep like stuff, because like obviously Frank's family stuff got taken there. Obviously Tabitha also gave Father Khatri back like the passages he had, I guess, written for them from the Bible. But Kenny's mom showed Jade a book dating back to at least like 75, and then she showed him a book that was like got the symbols in it, and it's like, okay. And at first I was like, okay, this is going to go super far back. At least we know that it might have a correlation to those Civil War people, or maybe it has some correlation to just being maybe it's like a magical symbol that like creates this place. So there's that. Earlier, Tabitha and Ethan were there, and she found something. I was like, the fact is that bracelet, she's focusing on it so much. I was like, it's got to be significant. I thought it belonged to someone that she knows that maybe disappeared or died or something. I was like, oh, does that mean someone you knew was here? But then talking to Jim later on, she's like, this is the bracelet I made, but you lost it at the hospital when Julia was born. Not Julia, Julie was born. So the question then becomes like, well, how did it get here? Like, this is impossible. It's like, yeah, but this place, it's filled with impossibilities. So at the very least, she can't explain how that bracelet got here, but at the very least, she can try and figure out how where the electricity is coming from. So she's digging, because apparently all the wires and they go straight down. So it's like, what does that correlate to? Like, what are they being powered by? They're going to be working on that next time we catch up with them. But two possibilities. One, someone found that bracelet and came here sometime before them. So there's that. Or two, we might be doing like a little bit of a... I can never remember if it's Halloween Town or if it's Don't Look Under the Bed. I can never remember. I want to say it was Halloween Town, but it might be Don't Look Under the Bed. Because it's been so long, but there's a place in one of those movies. I still want to say it was Halloween Town, but it might be Don't Look Under the Bed. I think it's Halloween Town. I keep going back and forth. I'm going to stick with It's one of the Halloween Town movies. I don't remember which one, but basically there's a place that once you go to, like, say, like, oh, you're like, oh, why is it I can find one sock, but I can't find the other one? This is a place, there was a place where it's like, right, when you lose something, it goes here. And the sad thing is, if you lose something in that place, because that ends up being a plot device, when you lose things in this particular place, they disappear forever. It's like, what happens in a place where things go when you lose them? What happens in that place when you lose things in the place where things get lost? I said that in the most confusing way possible. What I'm trying to say is, I think this bracelet might work in that same way of like, this place might be and when things get lost, people included, because these are people who literally kind of got lost and stumbled across this place. Things and people end up here that are lost. Potentially, I don't know. It's just the fact is that it ends up being something that Julie happened to find. Not Julie, Tabitha ended up finding. Like, the chances of finding something you've lost, maybe like 18 years ago, however old Julie is, because I'm assuming she's like a borderline, she's probably like a teenager / young adult. So I'm like 18, 20-ish years ago, something like that. So, fascinating. So there's that element to it. Which, speaking of Julie, there is that interesting thing where, like, those flowers, she found them, and it's like, oh, these look pretty, and even Fatma's like, oh, maybe you just have someone that's a big admirer of you. And the moment they focus on the flowers, I was like, that's probably not a good idea. Like, she put those flowers on, I'm like, that's going to become an issue later on. But then there's that guy walking through the house, and then one of the creatures got those flowers, right? So you're like, how did that happen? Like, those flowers were inside. So how'd you get those flowers outside? So either someone left them for you, or maybe those creatures, because maybe they were initially left not for Julie, but for one of the monsters. Like, could Victor have left those out? Like, I don't know what to make of that. Like, is that a different set of flowers, or did that guy leave them out there specifically? Like, he's like, oh, Julie got them, but they weren't meant for her, so I'm going to take them back out there and leave them where they're meant to be. So, like, has the monsters gotten in his head now, too? And now it's like, oh, she's like, now, can you let me in? So, these monsters seem to be getting craftier and craftier. Like, once again, the whole thing is like, right, don't let them get inside your head. So, because I guess once they get space in your head, once they're in there, there's no shaking them out, maybe. I'm not quite sure what to make of that ending. We'll have to see what they're like, because there's so many possibilities of what that could mean. That might be it, that he left those for her because the monster's gotten in his head and just trying, like, right, now you can, now he's kind of like, she's inside of his head and it's like, oh, you love me, right? Oh, like, I'm like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. You're enchanted with me. Now, like, let me into the house so I can murder all of you in your sleep. we'll see. But another interesting element to this is picking up where the last episode left off with Boyd having an idea about what he wants to do. So he's talking to Kenny about, right, you might have been upset when you said it, but what you said was true. We are running out of space on the board. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know how far the boundaries to this place go. So he plans to, like, get some supplies and go out into the woods, go as far as he can, because maybe there's some answers to all this. Because even he says, like, whatever was in this world working the way it was is slipping away. Because for a long time, we never knew whether or not talismans would work. We now know that they do work in the RV. I guess they just never bothered trying, or maybe it's just like, he almost made it sound like things shifted enough where things like that now do work. I don't know. Maybe it's just, he's saying that the place is shifting and changing, because even Victor says, like, right, the trees have moved. The place is alive, and I think correlating with what Jim and Tabitha are looking into and what Jade found out, like, I think it is proof that this place is alive and it shifts, and it's constantly shifting because it is an entity within itself. But Boyd is trying to leave everything to Kenny. Like, if I die, like, I need to leave it up to you. But for Kenny, it's like, yeah, you want to go off and get yourself killed? Go ahead and save yourself the trouble and just, like, fucking die already. And Kenny was saying it from a place of hurt. It's just been death after death. He lost his dad the way he did. Now finding out not only is Sarah responsible because she was like the daughter her mom never had. It's like someone so close to you, and you had no idea. Like, you still, and I think you're still though trying to understand why is probably like picking at him. And ultimately talking to Christy made him realize, because she was like, right, Kenny doesn't need a sheriff right now. Because he was like, yeah, I'm pushing him hard, but that's because it's like, yeah, but Kenny doesn't need a sheriff right now. He needs a father. And in that moment, she's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said. He's like, no, you're right. He's like, the whole thing of making mistakes again. And I guess that's the mistake he made with Ellis. Rather than being a father, like after he lost his mom, he kind of was there, probably there for everyone else and wasn't there as much. He was sheriff for everyone else, being there for everyone else, but he wasn't there for Ellis when it came to after his mom died. That's why I'm wondering who that's supposed to be. There's like one of the drawings at the beginning is like a black guy and a lady, because she's got like circles for boobs, and I'm like, is that supposed to be like Boyd and his wife, or is that supposed to be, you think, like Ellis and Fatima? Like, not unless that was supposed to be them, because whoever it is like has a lighter complexion, so it could be them, or not unless it's supposed to reference Boyd and his wife, or maybe it's just some generic drawing of like, just those drawings have such correlations to the show that I'm like, there has to be more to that, but maybe not. Maybe it's just like artistic, like tone setting and representation of what you'll get, because we also know those drawings are by Victor, so there might be even more to it, which we haven't seen him in a couple episodes. The last time we saw him was when he was digging those graves that Julie was looking at earlier in this episode, so who knows where he wandered off to and all this. Maybe he's just still chilling around Colony House, but still. Either way, Boyd tries to reach out to Kenny. He's like, oh, hey, let's toss the ball around and stuff like that. Just kind of almost having like almost father-son moment. And Boyd actually talks a little bit about himself, about like how he was being scouted at a young age. He doesn't go into it much, but he's like, right, life happens. And I'm like, I wonder, does that have something to do with his dad dying? Is that what correlated to him, like, because afterwards he gets into his circumstances, and it is Parkinson's. I'm not well versed in Parkinson's. Obviously, the little I know, and, because I think Michael J. Fox ends up being kind of like, I feel weird to say the go-to, but it's like, I think because he is an actor, because he is someone in the public eye, he does get, like, there's probably more of an eye on, like, I think generally people are probably a little more aware of Parkinson's because of Michael J. Fox. At least that's one of my earliest memories of that ever coming up, is like, oh, because I remember, like, I think that's one of the reasons why and maybe I'm correlating it wrong, but I think that's one of the reasons why at certain points in his career, like, he wasn't acting often, was because of that, That's my, like, introduction, I feel like, to that, was when that was, because I think my mom also talked to me about it a little bit growing up, because my mom's a nurse, so, like, being in the medical field, I think, so maybe that's why there's maybe that's why that's always stuck in my head. So when his hand, like, I immediately was like, oh, like, it seemed like a Parkinson's thing. Because even, like, him being like, yeah, I was told it would never be a hereditary thing. I was like, is that, I guess maybe there's a good chance it can be hereditary, but I guess it's something, like I said, I know so very little about, because I was like, because I guess in my head I was thinking maybe it was hereditary. I don't know. Because he was told it wouldn't be, so I guess it's like there were no early signs in him that there could be anything, so... But for him, like, the clock is ticking now. It kicked in. He was, like, around my age when my dad found out he had Parkinson's, so... And for him, it's like, it's not going to be long before I'm not able to protect the people of this town, so... I need you, and he's like, right, I know it's a lot putting it on you after everything that you've been through, because he doesn't know for sure, because Kenny's like, how do you know? But it's like, for him, he's like, I know. And so, he doesn't need Chrissy to check it out or anything like that, because he's kind of known for a little while. But he needs Kenny to be ready, because that's why he's not too worried, because he's like, I know, because you've helped so many people since being here, so he's like, I know if something ever happens to me, if I die, no matter what the circumstances may be, I know this town people are going to be in good hands. But he's like, right, if you don't think you're ready for it, then I will give you as much time as needed to, like, until you feel comfortable, ready. And they toss the ball back and forth, and so obviously partway through it, his hand starts shaking, and I thought it was nice what Kenny was like, right, I'll make you a bat so that we can, I'll carve you a bat so we can use that when you get back, because I do like that he's carving the new chess pieces, so, I was about to, once again, I keep doing that thing, I had to pause for a second, because I was about to call him Harold, I was like, Boyd, that always messes with me a little bit, when, like, when I'm always about to call a character by the name of the actor who plays him, it always kind of stumps me a little bit when I do that. I always have to shift my thinking a little bit when I do that. But regardless, it is Boyd being like, right, when I get back, right. It's like being more hopeful to it. So he's planning to go by himself, which I'm like, I guess that's also why he's like, I thought that's what he was going, like, I wasn't sure if that's what he was talking about last episode, but I was wondering, like, oh, is that what he was planning on doing? Trying to get people to leave the town, like, a very, like, pilgrimage across this place, because it's like, right, we take the roads, we circle back, but the woods are the place we have yet to fully explore, so, to the point, like, the only people who know about those trees are Victor and Ethan, so there's still just so much about the woods that no one else in town, because no one would venture out there. It's like, it's your mind's what you're digging your own grave by going out there. So either way, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, whether we how much time we spend with Boyd potentially out there in the woods, what Jim and Tabitha discover, what Jade ends up discovering on his end, the whole Father Cautry and Sarah thing. There's just a lot to see where all this goes, especially, once again, that colony house thing, what that ends up being. I'm excited to see where everything takes us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.